Scott, you're talking about a lot of money. Money this school just doesn't have.
48,000.
Or raise the money.
Oh, and who's gonna do that?
We will.
Scott Vose is a lazy, middle-aged high school biology teacher. One morning, he overslept and rushed out the door, speeding through the streets on his motorcycle. By the time he reached the school, he was already late. Hoping to slip in unnoticed, he climbed through the classroom window only to discover the principal standing inside.
And that is how a baby antelope comes into the world.
Thinking quickly, Scott turned his failed attempt at sneaking in into an improvised lesson, claiming he was demonstrating how a baby antelope emerges from its mother. The principal ignored the excuse, told him he was late again, and informed him that he would not be getting his vacation day. Frustrated, Scott tried to argue, but the principal refused to listen and walked out.
Come on, man, I was teacher of the year. That was 10 years ago. Feels like 8, though, right?
You got bus duty today.
Once the principal left, Scott told his students to read their textbooks while he sat down with his newspaper. One student asked a question about the lesson, but he brushed her off, saying that nothing she learned in this class would matter in the real world.
Yeah, that's some very advanced college-y stuff. Look, if you're done with your work, just go sit down and draw on your desk like Martinez.
I don't want to know.
The bell eventually rang, ending the class. Later, Scott went to buy a snack from a vending machine, but it got stuck halfway. Irritated, he bit the machine and managed to shake 2 snacks loose. A nearby student saw everything. Scott handed the kid one of the snacks and told him to keep quiet about it.
Oh, bonus. This never happened. We clear?
Hearing music from the rehearsal room, Scott walked in and found Marty, the music teacher, passionately directing his students. After they finished, Scott asked Marty to cover his detention duty. Marty agreed, then asked if a 48-year-old woman could get pregnant. He explained that his 48-year-old wife was expecting a baby and told Scott it was still early, so he wanted it kept secret. Scott, confused but supportive, congratulated him and handed over the duty vest.
What are the chances of a 48-year-old woman being pregnant?
Well, it depends what she looks like.
Later, in a staff meeting, the principal announced major budget cuts, and the music program was on the list. Marty defended it, but the principal said the school had no money. When Marty compared the music program to the football team, the principal pointed out that the football team raised funds.
Wait. Are you trying to equate your music program with the football?
Scott stepped in, saying Marty was about to have a baby and should not lose his job. The room fell silent. Then several teachers congratulated Marty again. The principal explained that keeping the music program alive would require $48,000. Scott insisted he and Marty would raise the money, and the principal reluctantly agreed.
As I was saying, we have no choice but to make these cuts.
The next morning, Marty came to school excited and ready to gather teachers to plan how they would raise the money. When he met Scott, Scott was already giving up on the idea. Marty told him he would meet with any teachers willing to help at the court later. But when the time came, only Marty and a school nurse named Bella showed up. Still trying not to give up, Marty went out to look for the others, while Scott and Bella realized no one else planned to help.
Maybe they thought it was in the cafeteria. I think I saw some people there.
There's no one in the cafeteria, is there?
Just that janitor that talks to himself.
When Bella asked Scott what the plan was, he told her it was a no-go because they needed to raise $48,000. She told him not to give up on Marty and said he should support him. Scott, interested in Bella, tried to shift the conversation and asked her out. She refused, so he made a bet. If he could dunk a basketball, she would agree to one date. Bella accepted, and Scott failed miserably. She walked away, leaving him embarrassed.
No. Come on, that's cheating.
Oh, no, it's not.
Later on, Scott went to his brother Eric and asked him to help him find an extra job. Eric told him he was struggling himself. He had many kids, lived in poor conditions, constantly argued with his wife, and his children ran around the house making a mess. He even admitted he had laid off 2 workers because he could not keep up with the bills. Eric then suggested that Scott return to the citizenship classes he used to teach. Scott agreed, hesitantly, saying he was not even sure if they were hiring.
If you need me to front you a couple of honeys, I can do that. I got some money stacked away that you don't know about.
Mom! Dad's betting again!
Scott ended up getting the citizenship teaching job and began instructing a new group of students. The classes were slow and dull. The students rarely paid attention, and Scott struggled to keep them engaged. One night, after class, a student named Nico asked for extra help so he could pass the citizenship test.
So, I was wondering, is there any way you can give me a little extra help?
Explaining that failing meant he would be deported. Scott initially refused, saying he already had too much going on. But as Nico was leaving, Scott felt guilty and called him back, saying he would try to help and that they could meet later that night to study. Nico lit up with relief, thanked him, and left.
You are the best. I've been the best. Oh, thank you. Thank you very much.
Scott then went to Nico's place and realized from the posters on the walls that Nico used to be a martial arts fighter. Nico introduced him to two of his friends, and they were getting ready to watch a UFC match. They invited Scott to join them, and Nico said they would study after the fight.
You hold for bits.
Ken Dietrich, Brian Stan.
Scott watched the match with them, and when it ended, one of Nico's friends mentioned that the losing fighter still earned $10,000. Scott was shocked, since he assumed a losing fighter earned nothing. They explained that the winner would have earned $50,000, but the loser still walked away with 10.
10 grand? He made 10 grand for that fight?
Yeah.
But he lost.
Hey, if he won, it would have been 50.
The next morning, Scott excitedly told Marty that he planned to start training in martial arts, saying they could raise the money faster that way. Marty refused, calling it dangerous, and insisted they should rely on Scott's night school job and Marty's private lessons. Scott argued that raising $48,000 through their current work would take years. After some pressure, Marty finally agreed.
This is crazy.
Look, I saw this UFC event last night, and the guy got paid 10 grand to fight, and he lost.
Scott quit his night class job, said goodbye to his students, and asked Nico to help him train so he could fight. Nico refused at first, saying Scott was too old, had no experience, and would not stand a chance. Scott tried to convince him, but Nico remained firm. Scott then reminded him that he had been helping Nico study and planned to keep helping until he passed his citizenship test. Hearing that, Nico agreed to help Scott train as well. Nico told Scott they would start with a small local fight, and he invited him to come so he could see what he was getting into.
Shouldn't we train first?
No. Trial by fire, baby.
Marty helped Scott get ready for the fight, even though Scott was not prepared or properly equipped. Marty suggested that he use music to pump himself up and fight with more energy. When the night of the match arrived, Marty and Scott went to the venue. Nico was surprised to see them there, and soon it was Scott's turn to fight. Scott walked into the ring wearing a strange homemade costume. He was excited and hyped up, but the moment the fight began, he was knocked out with a single kick. Afterward, he went to Bella, the school nurse. She treated his injuries and told him the whole idea was crazy and he should stop before things got worse. Scott reminded her that he had made a promise to Marty and wanted to try his best for him. Bella said she understood and told him he should at least talk to Marty about possibly quitting.
He'll understand. He'll you get knocked out cold.
Scott went to Marty's house, but found Marty's wife instead. He noticed the house was a bit cluttered, and she explained that Marty restored old musical instruments for students who could not afford them. She also told him she was expecting a baby, and asked him to keep it a secret. Realizing how kind and devoted Marty was, Scott said what the school was doing to him was awful. Marty's wife immediately asked what he meant, and Scott quickly realized she did not know about the situation at school.
He didn't tell you?
No, is there something wrong?
No, nothing bad at all.
He made an excuse and lied to avoid worrying her. When she asked about his injured face, he claimed he hurt his eye while trimming his eyebrows.
What happened to your eye?
I cut myself shaving. I was shaving.
He left the house determined to help Marty save his job. The next morning, he went to the school and gave the principal some money, telling him not to cut the music program and assuring him they would raise the full amount. He then went to Nico's workplace. Nico helped him train for a bit, showing him basic techniques.
Upper. Escape.
Okay, you're vulnerable like a puppy.
Before returning to his trainees at the gym, Scott went to his next match with Marty and Nico. Nico helped him as his trainer while he got ready and stepped into the ring. As soon as the fight began, Scott was overwhelmed and took several hits. Nico told him to focus on defense, but Scott struggled to keep up.
Hey, you can't lay down, man. Can you continue?
He's fine.
Hey.
After the second round, when they were about to start the third, it suddenly began to rain. Feeling relieved, Scott assumed the fight was over, but he quickly learned that matches do not stop because of rain. They continued, and the slippery ring gave Scott an unexpected advantage. His opponent kept losing balance while trying to kick him, and the two fought briefly until the match ended.
Don't let him take you down! Get away! Get
The next morning, while giving a test to his students, Scott noticed one of his top students, Malia, had missed several questions. When he asked what was wrong, she burst into tears and said her father was forcing her to quit music so she could work in his restaurant. Scott told her to let him handle it and say that her teacher would not allow it. But she told him her father believed school was a waste of time. When Scott insisted it was not, she reminded him that he had once said the same thing in class. She walked away, leaving him stunned.
Come on, Mr. Voss. You said it yourself. Learning this stuff doesn't matter.
Scott, Marty, and Nico drove to Scott's next fight. During the ride, Scott helped Nico study for his citizenship test by asking him practice questions. Suddenly, Scott asked Marty for his meal, but Marty admitted he had left it at the school. Scott got annoyed because that was supposed to be Marty's job. When Marty suggested they go back, Scott refused.
Hey, you forgot my oatmeal?
Well, I brought the stool.
I gotta eat, man.
Marty then offered him an applesauce he had with his stuff, and Scott reluctantly ate it. At the venue, while Scott was getting ready, he realized his opponent was using his chosen entrance song.
This is my song.
This is him. It's his song.
Scott and Marty were irritated, so Marty picked another track, an odd song from the 1960s. Scott made his entrance and stepped into the ring. When the fight began, he immediately took several hard hits, even though Nico kept shouting for him to focus on defense.
Come on, Scott!
After the first round, Nico and Marty reminded him again to stay defensive. Scott complained that he was tired of defending the whole time, but Nico told him that if he kept getting hit, he had no chance of winning. In the second round, the opponent came out strong and continued landing blows.
Hands up! Close the gap!
But during a brief opening, Scott threw a surprisingly powerful punch that knocked the opponent out cold. Scott earned his first win. Marty and Nico were thrilled, and the three began celebrating. But Scott suddenly felt sick and threw up on his opponent's face.
I'm so sorry.
On the drive home, Scott yelled at Marty for giving him applesauce that had been sitting in the sun. Marty and Nico told him the only thing that mattered was the victory, and they all laughed and celebrated. The next morning at school, Scott discovered that a video of his fight had gone viral. His students laughed at him in class, but Malia told him she heard he was doing it for the students and for the music program, calling him her hero. That lifted his spirits immediately. Later, he went to Bella for treatment again. She joked that she should start charging him since he was always injured. When she asked how much money they had raised so far, he told her they had $3,000. She said that was even more reason to start charging him. Then she handed him some cash she had made from selling baked products. Scott asked her out again to thank her, but she refused, just like before.
How about a little jambalaya? What do you think? You got nothing? All right.
Afterward, Scott met up with Nico for training. Scott told him his body could not take much more and that focusing only on defense was wearing him down. He said he needed to learn how to attack so he could win more fights and earn money faster.
I know you don't want me getting hurt. I get that. But I made twice as much money my last fight.
Nico agreed and took him to one of his best fighters to help him improve his striking. In the ring, Scott sparred with 3 different guys. He could not land anything strong, but he started learning proper striking techniques from them.
Those are hits. Come on, give him a break.
Then, Scott sat with the other men for dinner. While everyone started eating, Scott did not touch his food. When they asked why, he admitted he could not move his arms. Everyone laughed. Later, Bella came to help him. She noticed his shoulder was dislocated and tried to pull it back into place. Fortunately, it worked, and his shoulders were restored.
Ready?
Yeah.
I always wanted to try this.
Try this? What do you mean try? You never done this before?
The next day at school, Scott was called to the principal's office where Malia's father was waiting. He demanded to know why Scott was putting ideas in his daughter's head. Scott told him that he had every right to be upset, but he should not take it out on Malia. The principal jumped in and said Scott was embarrassing the school by getting into fights and by speaking to parents this way. Scott pushed back, saying the school was not doing anything to help the students, and he had stepped up to save the music program when no one else would. He then repeated to Malia's father that his frustrations were his own and should not be placed on his daughter.
Mr. De La Cruz, I'm sorry that you had to listen to any of this.
No. It's all right. What do you suggest I do, Mr. Voss?
Scott returned to his classroom and began teaching with genuine energy and passion. While he was explaining a concept, Bella passed by and saw him fully engaged with his students. She smiled, happy to see the change in him. Scott continued teaching in a clear and enthusiastic way, making sure every student understood the lesson.
Exactly. That is a sick dragon.
Later on, Scott continued preparing for his fights, using Marty as extra weight and lifting him during workouts, while Malia helped Nico study for his citizenship test. When Nico struggled to remember certain facts, Malia taught him to memorize them using his favorite song. Nico got excited and thanked her.
You are unbelievable. I told you. More later.
Scott kept winning more fights with Nico's training and Marty's support, and they began paying down the money needed for the music program. Scott trained harder, ran more, and kept practicing with the fighters Nico had introduced him to. He accepted more matches, and the contributions to the school continued to grow. One day, while Scott was doing an experiment with his students, he ran into Bella. He asked her out again, this time joking that he was standing up since she once teased him about always sitting when he asked. This time, she agreed to the date, and Scott promised he would cook anything she wanted. Eric helped Scott prepare the meal Bella had chosen.
Okay, we are done. Perfect.
When Bella arrived, Scott quickly told Eric to hide, and the two of them sat down for dinner. Bella loved the food and asked if he had really cooked it. When Scott said yes, she asked about the origin of one of the ingredients, and he could not answer. She laughed and told him to thank the real chef because the meal was excellent. Scott refused to admit the truth and said he would thank himself.
Yes, I made it. I told you I made it. I made it. Of course I did.
Later in the evening, Bella mentioned one of his fights and how he lost after his opponent grabbed his arm and made him lose his grip. Scott explained that he had to tap out, because if he had not, his arm would have been broken. Bella told him he needed to fight harder, then suddenly demonstrated what she meant by grabbing him.
Of course I'm hitting you with a closed fist. This is a fight!
No, it's not. It's like the weirdest date ever.
She jumped toward him, and they both slipped and fell. They laughed, and Scott joked that it was a very strange date. Bella laughed too, stood up, apologized for the clumsy move, and left for the night.
Sorry about the lamp.
Scott later went to his brother Eric and helped him get a job as a chef at Malia's father's restaurant. Back at school, Scott soon got news from his trainer that he had been offered a UFC fight. He was thrilled, but the trainer explained that Nico had already turned it down for him.
Nico turned it down.
You what?
Confused, Scott went to Nico's workplace and asked why. Nico said Scott was not ready for a fight that big. When Scott pushed for the truth, Nico admitted he was jealous. He had spent his whole life fighting and never got the chance to join the UFC, while a high school biology teacher was now being offered it. Scott also learned that Nico had quit fighting because of a neck injury. Feeling guilty, Scott apologized and said he would reject the offer if it bothered Nico. Nico told him to take it and fight.
If you don't think I deserve this fight, you know what? I'm not going to take it.
No, I'm sorry, bud. It's just... yoga makes me emotional.
That night, they met with a UFC organizer and agreed on a deal for Scott to fight in Las Vegas. They prepared for the trip. Before the flight, Marty's wife thanked Scott for everything he had done for Marty. Bella said goodbye and told him to be careful. When Scott leaned in for a kiss, she gently refused, saying they should not rush it.
Give him the best shot, Scott. Right here. Boom. Here comes the boom. Ready or...
Then Scott, Marty, Nico, and the trainer headed to Vegas for the fight. In Vegas, the group enjoyed a table full of food. When Scott tried to eat with them, they stopped him and reminded him he had a fight the next day. He agreed and only smelled the cake. Then Bella called. She told him the principal had been embezzling money and that everything they had raised was gone. She urged him to come home and not risk himself, since there was nothing left to fight for.
I can't. I gotta do this.
The money is gone, Scott. There's nothing to fight for anymore.
Scott refused. He said everyone had already given up on the kids and he would not be another person who walked away from them. He told Bella he would call her back, then focused on preparing for the match. On fight night, Scott's opponent prepared backstage while Scott got ready with his trainer. When Scott entered the staging area, he saw the music students performing. He was surprised and happy. He asked Marty if he arranged it, but Marty said he had not. Scott then saw Bella in the crowd. Her cheering gave him the confidence to walk into the ring. Back home, Eric and his wife had made up and watched the fight over dinner. Everyone at the school gathered to see the match. Scott entered the ring and waited for his opponent. His opponent joined soon after, looking intimidating, but Scott stayed focused. He asked his trainer, Marty and Nico, how much he would earn if he won. They told him $50,000. Scott said he needed that win and braced himself.
Let's win this thing.
The first round opened with a heavy punch from his opponent. Scott was overpowered, taking several blows and getting injured. Bella watched, worried. By the end of the round, he was bruised and exhausted. He told Marty and Nico that the fighter was stronger and had more tactics than anything he had trained for. They encouraged him, cleaned his wounds, and set him up for round 2.
The ground is not working.
No, I know. I want
not
to say
working.
that. He's so good there. He knows everything.
The second round went badly as well. Scott kept taking punches and kicks and was knocked down hard. He could barely stand. Marty and Nico rushed to him. Scott apologized to Marty, but Marty told him he had already won by fighting for the students. He pointed to the kids in the crowd and reminded Scott how much he had inspired them. When the third round began, Scott found new strength. He stood firm and began landing hits, surprising his opponent. They exchanged blows and Scott started gaining control. Then his opponent locked Scott's arm and trapped his neck with a leg.
Boss is in trouble here, Mike. This is not good for Scott, boss.
Scott tried to keep his grip as Nico shouted for him not to lose it, but he slipped. Somehow, he caught hold again, lifted his opponent, and slammed him hard onto the mat. The fighter was knocked out, and the referee ended the match. The arena erupted as Scott won. While celebrating with Marty and Nico, Bella ran to the cage and kissed him. Sometime later, the music program was restored and students returned to their lessons. Scott watched Marty teach with passion, and the principal thanked him for saving the program.
Hey, could I get that vacation day back?
Not a chance.
Didn't think so.
Meanwhile, Nico passed his citizenship test and officially became a United States citizen. He celebrated with Marty and Scott.